She was beaten for merely touching the wedding dress, but what happened next will leave you speechless. From being cast aside to wearing the most coveted gown in the land, Lamiya's fate takes a shocking twist that no one saw coming. Stay tuned to witness her incredible rise to power. In the warm, golden land of Odumbra, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the sun painted the skies with soft fire, lived a quiet girl named Lamiya. She was gentle like the morning breeze, and her eyes held the softness of early dew resting on cocoa leaves. Her skin glowed with the rich warmth of the earth, and though her beauty was rare, her life was filled with pain. Life had not been kind to her. She was only 5 when her whole world crumbled. Her mother, Lady Kaleni, once the pride of Odumbra, vanished during a violent raid by the eastern clans. One day she was there, and the next she was gone. No one knew if she was taken, killed, or lost. Her father, heartbroken and hollow, couldn't survive the weight of her disappearance. Within months, he too passed away, and little Lamiya was left alone in the world. With nowhere else to go, she was handed over to Ogwena, her father's second wife. Ogwena never loved Lamiya. She treated her like an unwanted shadow. Her love was reserved only for her own daughter, Buni, who was the complete opposite of Lamiya, loud, selfish, and cruel behind her pretty smile. Ogwena saw Buni as a golden ticket to wealth and status, and spoiled her endlessly. While Buni soaked in milk baths and wore dresses from faraway markets, Lamiya scrubbed floors with her bare hands and cooked meals she never got to taste. She woke before the rooster and slept only when the lanterns died. Every chore, every mistake, every punishment, Lamiya bore it all in silence. No one heard her cry. She had mastered the art of hiding her pain behind a soft smile. Sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the moon and whisper, "Mama, are you out there? Do you see me?" The moon never replied, but the wind would sometimes carry the faint scent of wild jasmine, her mother's favorite flower. It gave her hope. Inside the clay house, Ogwena would brush Buni's long hair, telling her how she was born to be a noblewoman, how men would fight for her hand. Lamiya, standing quietly by the door with a broom in hand, was never spoken to unless she was being blamed. Buni teased her daily, calling her dust girl and market rat, but still, Lamiya never raised her voice. She knew better than to fight fire with fire. Even when her feet ached and her back burned from labor, she kept her heart soft, because somewhere deep inside, she believed her story wasn't meant to end in that little house. She just didn't know how or when her life would change. But destiny was watching, and soon, the girl who was treated like nothing would become someone the whole land would never forget. One quiet morning, everything changed. A letter arrived, sealed with gold wax and stamped with the crest of Kobwa. It was from Jabari, the son of the richest trader lord in the region. Rumor had it he was looking for a bride, someone graceful, beautiful, and worthy of carrying his family's proud name. Ogwena's eyes lit up the moment she read the letter. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Without a second thought, she chose Buni. Not because Buni was kind or noble, but because she was hers, her daughter, her pride. The entire house buzzed with excitement. Drummers practiced outside. Buni demanded new jewelry, new perfumes, new shoes. And then it came, the wedding gown, carried in a special wooden case, wrapped in velvet and lined with perfumed silk. The dress was unlike anything Lamiya had ever seen, made of pearls from the deepest seas and golden threads that shimmered like the river Nyema under moonlight. It was a vision of royalty. It sparkled even in shadow. As the dress was carefully unwrapped and placed on a high wooden stand, Lamiya stood in the corner, silently dusting the shelves. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. Her eyes were fixed on that gown, not out of jealousy, but pure wonder. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Slowly, without thinking, she stepped closer. Just one wrinkle on the hem needed fixing. Just one gentle touch. Her fingers barely brushed the fabric. "How dare you touch it?" Ogwena's voice exploded like thunder. In seconds, the room was a storm. Ogwena lunged forward, fury in her eyes. She grabbed a broomstick and began striking Lamiya, yelling that her filthy hands had cursed the gown, that her touch would bring bad luck, that she was nothing but a stain on their perfect day. Buni stood in the corner, laughing, sipping sweet hibiscus tea as if watching a play. Lamiya didn't scream. She didn't fight. She covered her head and took the blows. When it ended, she crawled outside and curled under the old mango tree. The moon was rising, soft and silver. She looked up, her cheeks wet with quiet tears, whispering into the night, "Why me, Mama? but there was no answer, just silence. The next morning, Ogwena wasn't done. She ordered the guards to drag Lamiya to the busy marketplace. They yanked her out with nothing but the clothes on her back. No shoes, no food, not even a goodbye. She was dumped near the meat stalls like garbage. People watched, but no one helped. As the sun rose higher, Lamiya sat in the dirt, dust on her skin, her heart heavy. But deep inside her, something had shifted. Something small, silent, and strong had awakened. Her story wasn't over. Not yet. Lamiya had nothing. No roof, no bed, no warm food. At night, she curled up beside vegetable stalls, using a sack of onions as her pillow. The cold stone floor of the market was her new home. The smell of dried fish, sweat, and roasted maize clung to the air, but she didn't complain. She survived. Every day, she found small ways to keep going. She helped old women carry baskets of yams. She fetched water for stall owners. She even sang softly to restless children, while their mothers bargained for pepper and rice. Her voice, sweet and calming, became a gentle melody in the noisy market. People started to notice her, but not for the reasons she had once feared. They noticed her kindness, her quiet strength, the way she never begged, but worked for every crumb. Her palms blistered and feet calloused, yet her eyes still held light, not bitterness, not anger, just quiet hope. Then, one afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with gold and fire, a woman appeared. She was wrapped in flowing cloth of deep violet, with a silver cane in hand that tapped gently against the ground. Her presence made the market pause. Even the goats stopped chewing. Her name was Nyamba. No one knew where Nyamba came from. Some said she was a healer. Others whispered she was a priestess, a woman of great power. But all agreed. Her eyes saw beyond flesh and bone. When she looked at someone, it was as if she could read their soul. Nyamba stood before Lamiya, her silver cane shining in the light. Lamiya slowly rose, dusting her dress, unsure of what she had done wrong. Nyamba studied her, saying nothing at first. Then her voice came, soft, deep, and full of something ancient. "You are not meant for dust, child," she said. "You have a crown buried beneath your pain. Come with me." Lamiya blinked, unsure if she had heard right. "Me?" she whispered. "Yes, you." The market watched in silence. No one dared to interrupt. Nyamba extended her hand, and in that moment, something inside Lamiya stirred. Not fear, not confusion, but a quiet pull, like the wind calling leaves to dance. Lamiya took her hand, and just like that, the girl once beaten for touching a gown was led away by a woman of mystery, toward a future no one could yet see, but destiny had already written. The journey to Zomba Forest was like walking into a dream. Trees arched high like the arms of ancestors, whispering old songs through their leaves. Birds with feathers of sapphire and jade flew above, and the air smelled of wild honey and rain-soaked earth. Deep within this forest, hidden from the world, stood a small clay hut. Purple vines wrapped around its walls like gentle fingers, and soft smoke rose from a tiny chimney, carrying the scent of herbs and hope. Nyamba led Lamiya inside. The floor was lined with woven mats, and shelves were filled with jars of dried roots, stones, and flowers that glowed faintly under the light. Here, time moved slowly. Days bled into nights, and Lamiya was finally allowed to rest. Nyamba fed her warm soups brewed with healing leaves. She rubbed her bruises with oil made from moonseed bark, and when the pain refused to leave, she sang low, ancient songs that wrapped around Lamiya's soul like a mother's embrace. Little by little, the fear in Lamiya's eyes faded. Her shoulders relaxed. Her laughter, soft and rare, returned. One evening, as the fire crackled and stars blinked through the roof's thatch, Nyamba sat beside her, eyes deep and calm. "There is something you must know," she said. Lamiya looked up. "You are not a servant, Lamiya. You are the daughter of Lady Kaleni, the lost Duchess of Thundu." The words struck like thunder. Lamiya's heart pounded. She shook her head slowly. "But I have nothing. I am no one," she whispered, her voice small, as if afraid to break the silence. Nyamba took her hand gently. "Your mother disappeared in the raids. Yes, but she was no ordinary woman. She ruled with wisdom and grace. You have her eyes, her heart. The world tried to hide who you are, but your blood remembers, even when your soul forgets." Tears welled in Lamiya's eyes. She had grown up thinking she was unwanted, discarded like old cloth. But now, here in this sacred place, she was being told she came from royalty, noble blood buried beneath scars and sorrow. "I don't know how to be a duchess," she said. "You don't need to know, child. Nyamba replied. You already are. That night, Lamiya sat by the window, watching fireflies dance above the forest. Her heart was heavy, but for the first time, it was also full of something new, possibility. Lamiya's journey to reclaim her destiny was not an easy one. Nyamba, with her ancient wisdom, knew that true strength was not found in a crown or riches. It was found within. To awaken the power that lay dormant inside Lamiya, she would have to face 3 trials that would test her body, her spirit, and her heart. The first trial was the trial of fire. Nyamba led Lamiya to a clearing where a circle of glowing embers lay on the ground, shimmering like red-hot stars. The heat radiated from them, making the air heavy and thick. Lamiya's heart pounded as she stared at the embers, wondering if she was ready. Nyamba's voice broke the silence. To walk this path, you must leave behind fear. Trust in your name, your true name, and walk through the fire. Lamiya closed her eyes, breathing deeply. She had nothing left to lose. With a steady step, she moved forward, her bare feet kissing the glowing embers. It burned at first, but as she continued, the pain seemed to fade. Her mind focused on one thing, her name. Lamiya, she whispered. I am Lamiya. The fire no longer felt like a threat. It felt like a challenge she was meant to conquer. She crossed the embers, her spirit now stronger, her feet unburned. The second trial was the trial of the mirror tree. Nyamba led her to a towering tree, its bark shiny like polished silver, reflecting the moonlight. As Lamiya stood before it, the tree's branches began to move, and faces started to appear within the reflections. They were faces of people from her past, her stepmother Ogwena, Buni, the villagers who mocked her, and even the voices that whispered doubts into her heart. Each face showed the insults, the lies, and the pain they had caused her. Lamiya felt the weight of each word, each betrayal pressing against her chest. But then, Nyamba's voice came softly. Forgiveness is your true strength, Lamiya. Do not carry their words in your heart. Lamiya took a deep breath and stepped forward, facing the mirror images. With tears in her eyes, she whispered, I forgive you. The faces faded one by one, and the tree glowed brighter. Lamiya had freed herself from the past. The final trial was the trial of the silent pool. Nyamba led her to a crystal-clear pool in the heart of the forest. It was eerily quiet, the only sound the occasional ripple of water. Lamiya was told to sit by the edge and stay still, listening only to her heart. No distractions, no thoughts of the past or future, just silence. The day stretched into night, and Lamiya's body ached from sitting so still. The stars above twinkled, but her mind was calm. The longer she stayed, the deeper she listened. She could hear her heartbeat, slow and steady. She could feel the rhythm of her soul. It was then she understood. Her destiny had always been within her. She just had to be still enough to hear it. Lamiya passed all 3 trials. She had walked through fire, forgiven the past, and listened to her heart. She was no longer the girl who had been cast aside. She was a warrior, ready to claim her place. The crown was waiting for her, not in a palace, but in the strength she had found within herself. The year the kingdoms united was marked by whispers of grandeur and destiny. A royal ball was to be held, an event unlike any other, where the 4 kingdoms would come together in harmony. It was a night of opulence, tradition, and high hopes. The noble Prince Sanuri of Kibala, known for his wisdom and strength, was set to choose his queen among the maidens of noble blood. Every princess, duchess, and lady of the realm was invited to this ball, their hearts filled with anticipation and dreams of a future in the prince's court. But Lamiya, though she had been born into nobility, had never been treated as one. She was the daughter of Lady Kaleni, the lost Duchess of Thundu, but that title had been hidden from her for years. She had never attended such events, never worn gowns made of silk or pearls. Still, Nyamba, with her deep understanding of fate, knew this moment was coming. She was not about to let Lamiya step into the world of nobility without embracing her true worth. The night before the ball, Nyamba worked tirelessly, weaving magic into the very fabric of the gown she created. She used the fabric of the ancients, a cloth so rare and sacred that it was said to be woven with the very threads of the stars themselves. The gown shimmered with phoenix silk, moonlight threads, and lioness pearls, capturing the essence of the heavens and the strength of the earth. As the final stitch was placed, the gown seemed to come alive, glowing softly in the dim light of the hut. When Lamiya stepped into the gown, It was as if the world held its breath. The gown hugged her frame perfectly, flowing like liquid silver as she moved. Her eyes sparkled with newfound confidence, her every step a testament to the woman she had become. For the first time, she truly felt the weight of her heritage, the power of her bloodline. She was no longer the servant girl from the marketplace. She was the daughter of a lost duchess, a queen in the making. As she entered the ball, the air seemed to change. The room, filled with the most beautiful and powerful women from all the kingdoms, fell silent. It wasn't just her gown that turned heads. It was the aura around her, the strength, grace, and dignity she radiated. The stars themselves seemed to pause, their light dimming in awe of her presence. Lamiya was no longer invisible. She was a force to be reckoned with, a woman of destiny, and the world was now ready to see it. Prince Sanuri's gaze locked onto hers across the room. He had heard of her beauty, but nothing could have prepared him for the power that seemed to emanate from her very being. The other maidens, once filled with their own hope and ambition, now faded into the background. There was no question. The choice had already been made. Lamiya, the lost daughter of Thundu, had stepped into her destiny. The prince would choose her, and the kingdoms would never be the same again. The grand hall was alive with laughter, music, and the fluttering of silk gowns. But when Lamiya entered, everything came to a screeching halt. Every head turned in unison, their eyes wide with astonishment. The once lively chatter was replaced with stunned silence. The women who had once whispered about her and looked down on her now found themselves frozen in place, their mouths agape, struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. Lamiya's presence seemed to command the very air around her. The gown she wore glimmered in the light, like it had been touched by the stars themselves. Its ethereal glow made it look as though she was not just wearing a dress, but carrying the essence of the heavens with her. Her skin, kissed by the glow of the gown, radiated with a newfound confidence, as if the fabric had unlocked something deep within her. She was no longer the quiet, humble girl from the market streets. She was a queen, a force of nature. Across the room, Ogwena and Buni stood rooted to the spot, their faces contorted in disbelief. Ogwena's eyes bulged, her mouth hanging open as if the sight before her was too much to process. Buni, always the spoiled one, could only whisper in shock, "That can't be. It's the rat girl." Ogwena's voice followed, trembling with a mix of fear and jealousy. "She's wearing a gown fit for gods." Her words were a sharp contrast to the usual venomous tone she would use when speaking about Lamiya. This time she was unsure of how to react, overwhelmed by the sheer beauty and power emanating from the young girl. The whispers started to ripple through the room like a wave. Guests exchanged surprised glances, their conversations suddenly hushed. It wasn't just the gown, it was Lamiya herself, the way she carried herself, the elegance in her step, the way the gown seemed to glow around her. It was as though the heavens had chosen her, and they couldn't deny it any longer. Prince Sanuri, who had been deep in conversation with other nobles, turned at the sound of the gasps. His eyes immediately locked onto Lamiya. He froze. There, across the room, stood the girl he had heard so much about, but had never truly seen until now. His heart skipped a beat. The woman in front of him was not just beautiful, she was powerful. The entire room had stopped to witness her entrance. And in that moment, so had he. For a brief moment, time seemed to stand still. Lamiya felt the eyes of the room upon her, but instead of shrinking away, she stood tall, her head held high. This was her moment. The gown, the trials, the hardships, everything had led to this point. She was no longer invisible. She was no longer a servant. She was Lamiya, the lost daughter of Thundu, and the world would soon know her name. Ogwena and Buni stood in shock, unable to fathom the transformation before their eyes. But as they watched, the realization began to sink in. The girl they had scorned, the one they had humiliated, was now the one everyone would bow to. The gown of destiny had chosen her, and no one could take that away. As the night went on, whispers filled the grand hall, the buzz of curiosity rising as more people gathered around Lamiya. The royal scribe, a tall man in a crisp robe, made his way toward her, his eyes scanning the room. In his hand, he carried an heirloom necklace, its intricate design glinting under the chandeliers. He had seen this necklace before, many years ago when it was worn by Lady Kaleni, the Duchess of Thundu. As he carefully examined the necklace around Lamiya's neck, his face turned pale, his hand trembling slightly. He spoke in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. though his words seemed to echo in Lamiya's ears more than anyone else's. "This is the rightful heir of Thundu." Gasps filled the room. The air thickened with shock and disbelief. It was as if the ground beneath everyone's feet had shifted, and the truth had finally been uncovered. The whispers that had been building now turned into frantic murmurs. Lamiya, the humble girl who had been cast away, was the true heir to the throne. She was not just a servant or an orphan. She was royalty. She was a queen in disguise, and the realization hit like a thunderclap. Ogwena, standing near the back of the room, collapsed in a heap, her eyes wide in shock. She had never expected this. Her cruel actions, the lies she had spun to cover her deceit, all seemed to crumble in an instant. The truth she had tried to bury was now laid bare for all to see. She had played the part of a wicked stepmother too long, and now the consequences of her schemes had come for her. Buni, her daughter, stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing in disbelief. She tried to regain control of the situation, but her words faltered. Desperately, she tried to shout above the noise, her voice trembling with panic. "She's bewitched you! She's cursed the court!" But no one paid her any attention. The truth was undeniable, and no amount of shouting could erase it. Just then, Nyamba appeared at the entrance of the hall, her presence as commanding as ever. She walked forward with quiet grace, her silver cane tapping against the floor with each step. The crowd parted for her, sensing the weight of her wisdom. As she approached Lamiya, her eyes met those of Ogwena, and the tension in the air became almost palpable. With a voice that held the power of years of truth and knowledge, Nyamba spoke. "You all have been deceived for far too long," she said. She turned toward Ogwena, her gaze piercing. "Ogwena, you hid the truth of Lamiya's heritage. You stole her father's will and cast her into the streets, all to protect your own selfish desires. You thought you could bury her, but the truth has a way of rising, just like the sun." The room fell silent as Nyamba's words sank in. Ogwena's face drained of color as she realized the full weight of her actions. She had been exposed, and there was no escape from the consequences. Without hesitation, the royal guards were summoned, and Ogwena's status was stripped away. She was no longer the woman of power she had once been. The crowd watched in awe as she was led out of the hall, her shoulders slumped in defeat. And as for Buni, the wedding she had dreamed of, the marriage to Jabari, was promptly cancelled. The royal scribe, with his steady voice, announced the end of the engagement. "No union shall be made under such deception," he declared. Buni, once so sure of her place, now found herself standing in the rubble of her own arrogance. Lamiya, however, stood tall, her heart beating with newfound strength. The gown she wore was no longer just a symbol of beauty. It was a symbol of her reclaiming what was rightfully hers. Her past, her pain, and her suffering had led her to this moment. And now, as the rightful heir to Thundu, Lamiya would no longer be the forgotten servant girl. She would be a queen, and her destiny was hers to claim. The day Lamiya had dreamed of, though never truly believed would come, arrived in a breathtaking whirl of gold and magic. Standing at the edge of the river Nyema, the waters shimmered under the golden rays of the sun, and the air was filled with the sweet melodies of birds singing in harmony. Boats made of pure gold drifted along the river's surface, their sails catching the breeze, adding to the enchantment of the moment. It was here, by the banks of the river where stories were born, that Lamiya's wedding to Prince Sanuri was held. Her heart raced with excitement, but also with a deep sense of peace. This was not just any wedding. This was the moment that marked her transformation. She had been beaten, humiliated, and cast aside. But today, she stood as a queen, chosen by fate and love. The gown she wore, the one she had once been slapped and cursed for touching, was now hers to wear on the most important day of her life. It shimmered as if it held the very essence of the stars, the phoenix silk catching the sunlight and reflecting it in dazzling patterns. This was not just a gown, it was the gown of destiny, named the Spirit of Light. No other gown in the land had ever cost more, not in gold or in heart. It was the very symbol of Lamiya's rise from the ashes of her past. As Lamiya walked towards Prince Sanuri, her steps light but powerful, the crowd watched in awe. They had witnessed her journey from a servant girl, cast aside in the dust, to a woman who commanded the room with nothing but her presence. The whispers that once condemned her were now replaced with admiration. She was no longer the forgotten girl of the marketplace, nor the girl who had been cast aside by her cruel stepmother. She was a sovereign in her own right, and the people could see it in the way she carried herself, graceful, strong, and utterly regal. Prince Sanuri, his eyes wide with wonder, stepped forward to meet her. His love for her had grown from respect to admiration, and now it was solidified in the moment of their union. He took her hand gently, his touch reverent, as if he too understood the weight of her journey. Together, they stood as symbols of resilience and triumph, two souls whose destinies had intertwined in the most extraordinary of ways. As the ceremony unfolded, the spirits of the river seemed to join in, their voices rising with the wind, creating an atmosphere of pure magic. The river, which had once been the silent witness to her struggles, now became a witness to her greatest triumph. The gown that had once caused her pain was now the symbol of her strength, resilience, and the power of her true identity. It was not just a wedding dress. It was a declaration to the world that Lamiya was no longer a servant of fate. She was its sovereign. Ogwena's fate was sealed, but it was not the end she had imagined. After the grand revelation, she was cast away, her once proud status stripped away. The market that she had sent Lamiya to, where she had been forced to live as an outcast, was now her new home. The same streets that had once been filled with her cruelty and disdain were now where she spent her days. She no longer commanded respect, nor did she have a roof over her head. Instead, she begged for scraps of food, her pride shattered. Every day she washed strangers' clothes, her hands worn and calloused, and the people who once feared her now looked past her as if she were invisible. The life she had so recklessly discarded for power had come full circle, and there was no escape from the life of humiliation she had condemned Lamiya to. As for Buni, her downfall was even more swift. No longer was her name spoken with reverence in the halls of nobility. She vanished from the city, erased from noble records, as though she had never existed. The silk gowns and fine foods that she had taken for granted were now just distant memories. Her beauty and privilege had been nothing but a fragile illusion, and now the world had forgotten her, just as she had once tried to erase Lamiya. But Lamiya, now Queen Lamiya of Kibula, was far from the girl she once was. Instead of seeking revenge, she chose a path of grace. As queen, she set out to heal the wounds of her people. She built schools for orphans, ensuring that no child would have to endure the hardships she had faced. She taught girls to read, to understand that their worth was not measured by the cruelty of others, but by the strength of their own hearts. Lamiya ruled with kindness, and her wisdom was her crown. No jewel or heavy weight adorned her head, for her greatest treasures were the lives she touched with her compassion. The people of Kibula hailed her not just as a queen, but as a beacon of hope, a woman who had risen from the dust of suffering to become the light that guided them. In every school she built, in every girl she taught, her legacy grew stronger, and as she stood among the people, Lamiya's heart swelled with love for those she had once believed she would never be able to help. The narrator's voice closed the tale with the kind of truth that echoes in the hearts of those who have struggled and overcome. From dust to diamonds, from sorrow to sovereign, never doubt what lies within the soul of the forgotten, because sometimes the hand that touches a gown today may one day wear a crown made of stars. If Lamiya's journey has touched your heart, remember, no matter how dark the path may seem, there is always a light waiting to guide you. Her story shows us that no amount of cruelty or hardship can define who we are. With resilience, kindness, and belief in our own worth, we can rise above anything life throws our way. If you believe in the power of hope, justice, and the strength that lies within all of us, please give this video a like. Share it with those who need a reminder that they too can overcome the challenges they face. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that inspire and uplift. Your support means the world to us. By liking, sharing, and subscribing, you're helping us spread stories of strength, courage, and hope to the world. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Together, we can remind everyone that no matter how broken the beginning, a beautiful ending is always possible. Stay strong, and always remember, your story is still being written. Keep believing and keep shining.